All right, we are recording. Okay, so any questions that anybody working on any problems this week and they might have issues with? Any questions on anything anybody's been working on this week? Because I know Layla, you've been doing a lot of work. Anything you needed some help on?
Thank you for asking. I find myself really, how you say it? I put a note here. Actually, if you give me a few minutes, I may send you a picture of it.
Okay.
On your text, yes. So we can move on.
Okay. All right, so where is this at? One of the things I did want to go over, and Patrick, he could probably answer this. When they gave you 2 points, did you have to do this, find the slope or the equation of a line?
They actually didn't give me 2 points.
Wow, they didn't ask that?
They did ask me for the slope of the perpendicular line.
Okay.
But it was just the slope, so it wasn't the equation.
Wow. So the example of the slope of the perpendicular line, what did they give you? You remember? Well, you can't give me give me you can't really talk about the test, but around what type of problem was it?
It was just in the y-intercept form.
Okay. So so they said something like y equal 1/2 x minus 5, and they wanted to know the perpendicular.
Yeah.
And then they gave you 4 examples. So those 4 examples could be y equal minus 2x plus 3.
But it was just the slope, so it was just
b. Okay. Oh, just okay. Hold on. So well, let me erase that. Find the slope of the perpendicular. Okay. So find the slope of the perpendicular. So they might have had 1/2 minus 1/2. C would be 2. And then D would be minus 2. So in this case, of course, we know if it was parallel, we would have the same slope. Since it's perpendicular, we do the negative inverse. So we change the sign, which is to negative, and we flip it to 2/1, which is -2. So with a question like that, that should be fairly easy. And believe it or not, the slope of the perpendicular parallel is considered a difficulty of medium, not easy. So that's a good thing. All right. Layla, did you send that? Let me see.
I'm about to. Give me a minute, please.
Okay. All right. So. Where is it? So they get you. So you had something like this, but just the equation was in slope-intercept form.
Yep.
Okay. Let me ask you another question. Did they give you any linear equations in standard form?
I think they gave me one.
Okay.
Most of it was in a graph. It was like which one's actually like which one's the correct one, kind of thing. So
okay.
And it would give me like 4 graphs to pick from.
Okay. Yeah. So one of the things you want, and one of the things if you are given a graph, remember the same thing we've been doing in class. Is it positive or negative? What's the y-intercept? What's the slope? If you go in that order, you can usually get rid of 2 or maybe even 3 of the multiple choice without even doing the whole problem. So Layla just sent it in a problem. Let me try to draw it now. Now for the GED, I doubt if you even had this, but I'll go over it.
Sorry if you hear background noise when I'm talking, by the way.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
You can? Okay, I was on mute. So what you want to remember is if you look at this, you always go with what you know. Always start with what you know. So we know a straight line is 180 degrees. So remember, less than 60 is an acute angle. More 90-degree angle is a right angle. More than 90 degrees is an obtuse angle. But in this problem, what we want to know, this straight line is 180 degrees. So what we know from that is that all three of these angles, so we call this angle 1, we'll call this angle 1, this angle 2, and this is angle 3. So all three angles, angle 1 plus angle 2 plus angle 3, must equal the entire 180 degrees. Now we substitute give our terms in. So instead of angle 1, we're going to put 5x plus 10x plus 9x equal 180. We're then going to combine like terms. So we got 5 plus 10 is 15, plus 9 is 24. So we got 24x equal 180 degrees. Now this becomes a one-step algebraic equation where we divide both sides by 24. And so we won't make any mistakes. Okay, so x is 7.5. Remember, we're solving for x. So this is where most people make the mistake on this type of problem. Because remember, it depends upon what they're asking for. So what they're asking for is, what is the measure of BOC? Okay, so let me put this here. Let me label this correctly. So they gave us labels here. So they gave us, let me change my color. Let's go to blue. So they call this point C, this 0 or O, and they call this B. They call this A, and they call this D. So what they wanted to know is the angle of BOC. So when we look at BOC, let me change my color again, it's this angle here. So here, when we got x equals 7.5, we're not done. That just solved for x. But to know each individual angle, we then had to do 5x, right? So 5 times 7.5. And again, we don't want to make mistakes. Throw it in the calculator. Again, we already have 7.5, so we multiply by 5. 37.5 would be the result. So that angle BOC will be 37.5. So this angle here is 37.5. This angle here, they didn't ask you for it, but 10 times 7.5 would be 75 degrees. And then we know that, and then the resultant or the last angle, which is 9x, which is 9 times 7.4, 9 times 7.5, which is what? What's that? Just minus 7.5, so 62.5. No, that's off. See how you make a mistake? See how everybody make a mistake. So we just gonna put it in the calculator. 9 times 7.5. I don't know why I got that wrong. Should be 63 and 4.5. 67.5. Yep. Let me erase that. So this angle will be 67.5. This would be 75. This would be 37.5. Now the last step, just to make sure, and it's up to you, but you should always check your work. 37.5 plus 75 plus 67.5. We should get 180, and we do. So now that's more if you were taking the task or the high set. Oops. That's more if you're taking the task or the high set. I don't know if I've seen any angles besides right angle on the GED exam. So I don't think you have to worry about angles. And this is why for many cases, people study for months and years. And a lot of times they may be studying the wrong or things that may not be on the exam. Now, you should know angles, acute, obtuse, right, straight, complementary, supplementary. Should you know all those? Yes. So if your intent is to go to post-secondary training, to go to community college, or to go to college afterwards, it's important that you do know angles. Okay? But for our intents and purposes, studying for the GED, I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time on angles, but if you know, of course, if you had those other goals in mind, then you want to make sure you know angles. It's a very important concept of geometry. Very important. Angles are very important. And, did you send me another problem? I think I heard another one, correct?
Yes, thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. Okay, so this one, what is the solution to the equation? Okay. So it said find a solution.
Sorry
Does
to interrupt you,
anybody?
Mr. Tinsley. I'm gonna head out.
Okay, no problem. Congratulations again, Patrick.
Thank you. One last thing is I didn't have any kind of angle problems either.
Right. They barely, the GED, you barely gonna have any angles. Ever. I've never seen one, not one.
Okay. Well, thank you for your help. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome.
One step closer to the GED.
You're welcome. So first of all, let me ask the class here, what type of problem is this? How do I know when to start? So let me put the multiple choice here first. So it's A. Layla, is that 2 and 3 for the first one?
Yes, that's what it is.
Minus 6 and 3.
Correct.
And then minus 2. No, not minus.
No, just 2.
2.3.
Correct.
The first thing I'm gonna say is you barely see any answers that are in whole numbers or common fractions. And the last one is 4.4. So now minus 4.1.
Yes.
So what type of problem is this? Does anybody know? Always start with you know. What type of problem is this?
Is it quadratic?
Yes. So that's the first thing. This is a quadratic equation. Now, there's 3 ways you can solve this. You can solve it by factoring. You can solve it using the quadratic formula. And the third possible way is the most important way, because a lot of times on the GED, the high set and task, it may be the easiest way. And that's just substitution. So the first thing I'm gonna look at is a quadratic equation. So one thing I show you in the book is that if the coefficient of the quadratic equation is 1, then you try to factor C, which is 14, because we know that the standard form of a quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So it's already in standard form. So if I factor minus 14, what pairs will give me 14? So we got minus 1, and 14 minus 2 and 7. Okay, we go to the other side, we switch our signs, and we have 1 and negative 14, and we have 2 and negative 7. So this is the first way I suggest to you, is if you know how to factor or find a factor pairs of C when your coefficient is 1, is what pair is going to give you B. Well, you can quickly see that none of these pairs, if you combine them, will give you B. Wow. So the second way you could do it is because there's no factor pair. So this is the first pair. We're going to see if we could solve by factoring. That didn't work. So that didn't work. The second way is identifying the coefficients. A equal 1, B equal 4, and C equal negative 14. And then we could take those values and we can plug them in to what's called the quadratic formula. Okay. I can tell you right now, if you have to use the quadratic formula, it's going to take you 5 to 8 minutes. Okay. You don't have time to spend on one problem 5 to 8 minutes. Okay. So what I would do is this. Watch this. I want to clear, I'm going to erase this. Let me take a picture of it first and let me clear the screen, because this is what you need to understand. Let me erase all of this here. Okay, the easiest way, again, if they give you an equation and then they give you multiple choice with the possible answers, you just plug them in. So for example, let's look at A. A is 2. So let me clear everything out. 2 store X, and we're going to put in the quadratic formula. X squared plus 4X minus 14. If 2 is a solution, we should get 0. Do we get 0? Do we get 0?
No, we didn't. We get
No.
negative 2, yeah.
So right there, we know it's not A. Okay, so let's go to B. Let's plug in 3. 3 store X. And then I'm going to go back up into my quadratic equation. I don't even have to write it over. Just go back to my quadratic equation and press enter. Is that equal to 0?
No.
No. So again, now this is where sometimes people get confused. Remember, you can store anything as X. You can store a fraction. You can store a whole number. You can store a decimal. You can store a radical. It doesn't matter. You can store all these things in X. So let's do 2.3. 2.3, store X. Go back up into our formula. Press enter. Definitely can't be 2.3. Now let's go to our last option here, 4.4. 4.4, store X. Then go back up to our formula. And all of these, none of these work. Now, wow. That's probably why he was confused. All right, so let me plug them in using the quadratic formula and see if that works. Hold on. 1, 4 minus 14. Hold on for 1 second. Let me clear the screen. And this is why, and this is just my personal opinion. And most of the time, you're going to have whole numbers for your answers for the GED. You won't have to worry about a problem like this. But this is what caused so much confusion, is because now you're going to spend so much time on this problem. Watch. So I'm going to do a little different way. So this time I'm going to use the values again, 1, 4, minus 14. So A, watch this. So 1, store A. Hold on, let me start over. 1 store A, 4 store B, and minus 14 store C. So we stored each of the variables as A, B, and C, and now we're going to put in the quadratic formula. So ND, and I go over this step by step in the ebook, so you won't have to spend 8-10 minutes on this problem. Minus B plus B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. And that formula is straight from your GED formula sheet. We're going to press enter, hit your double arrows to get the decimal, and your answer is 2.24. So what they did was on your answers, they rounded it off. So I think one of your answers was 2.2. So what they did was round it off. So again, on that problem, they expect you to plug each of those values into the quadratic formula. Listen, if I'm taking this GED and I get a question like that, I'm skipping it until I finish the exam, because this problem would take absolutely forever unless you know how to do it like this on the calculator, and then it wouldn't take you as long. It took me about 2 minutes. But then you go back up here to get your second one, press enter, and we're going to change that plus to a minus, because remember, the formula is minus B plus or minus B squared. But since this calculator, you only can do one at a time, so the second answer was minus 6.24. So on this answer, since they rounded off, and matter of fact, none of those answers are there. So if you
Yes,
look at the
I think it's B. I think it's B, negative 6 and 3.
No, it's probably C, because they got two. Oh no, see, none of those answers are there.
Yeah, that's why I was so confused.
And that's what I mean. So listen, and I'm not saying, anybody's perfect, but what happens is, this is why on the Schoology site, I only got problems you're going to see, the types of problems. So what you want to remember is, for the most intents and purposes, they will have whole numbers. So if you get a quadratic formula, the easiest way is to plug those values in, or plug it into your calculator. Now again, you should be able, and I'm gonna do it for you. Watch this. Mine ND. Hold on, let me clear it. ND, and then again, I go over this in the book. Storing A, B, and C, and then just practice. If you do this for a day, no matter what quadratic equation they give you, you'll be prepared. Minus B plus the square root of B squared minus 4AC. I went past this, sorry about that. All over 2A. If you notice, that didn't take me long at all. And all I would do is, once I store A, B, and C, plug that quadratic formula using your calculator, and it gives you an answer. Now, they give you a radical answer, then you got to hit those double arrows to change it to a decimal. But again, if you purchase the ebook and you get a quadratic equation, if you study just that portion for quadratic equations one day and do about 4 or 5 times, you'll be able to put that quadratic formula when you take the exam. So that problem, instead of taking you 5 minutes, or it probably take you longer than that. Again, so my advice would be, if you have a problem like that and you see decimals, which you're not, because the GED won't have those, but the 2 things I would probably do: see if I can plug the answers in to the quadratic equation. That's the first thing I would do. Second thing I would do is, if you had a more difficult problem like that, is identify A, B, and C, and then plug them in for the quadratic equation. So let me show you, because I know you're sitting here like, oh my God, Mr. Tensley, that is just too much. So the type of problem that you could expect to see for a quadratic equation is something like this. And I'm gonna use that same minus 14 plus 5x minus 14, okay, equals 0. So I'm gonna show a problem that's indicative of what you will probably see on the GED. That problem that's for probably college entrance exams. You won't see that on the GED, okay? So first of all, understand that this is already in standard form. The second thing you notice is the coefficient that's in front of this x squared is 1. If a is equal to 1, you want to try to factor c. Okay, c is minus 14. And you want to find the factor pairs of negative 14. So that's 1 and negative 14 and 2, negative 7, minus 1 and 14 and negative 2 and 7. Okay, these are all the factor pairs that you can multiply together to get negative 14. Does everybody understand that?
Yes.
Okay, once you find those factor pairs, you then want to find which pair is going to give you B. 7 minus 2 is equal to 5. Once you find that pair, you just use those x minus 2 and a plus 7, x plus 7. This is factor. To solve it, you find the zeros. And I go over this in the ebook too. Opposite of minus 2 is plus 2. The opposite of plus 7 is minus 7. Now, that's how you solve it to factor. But guess what? What they're going to do is they're going to give you multiple choice for most intents and purposes. So they might have minus 2 and 7. They might have minus 7 and minus 2. They might have what's that? Plus 2 and did I do all of it? And 7 minus 7? I already got that. That's the answer. And then D would be what? Plus 2 and plus 7. Okay, so this is what I want you to understand. This is how you factor. This is how algebraically you solve it. If A is 1, they want you to find the factor pairs. From the factor pairs that gives you B, you factor it and then find the zeros. That is how they want you to solve it algebraically. What I'm telling you to do for speed, and so you won't spend, especially because you'll spend too much time on this. Watch this. Let me show you something. I'm gonna erase this. I did take a picture of it. Watch this. I want you to grab your calculator and you plug each one of these in to this equation. Watch this. So my first value, to solve this solution they're giving us is minus 2. So minus 2, store x. And I'm going to plug that into this equation. X squared plus 5x minus 14. If this is correct, I should get 0. I'm going to hit enter. Did I get 0?
No.
No, because you didn't get 0, you know minus 2 and 7, you know minus 2 is not a solution. So anything with minus 2 in it, you can get rid of. Understand that?
Yes.
Okay, now we go to the next value of x, a positive 2. So again, we're going to do the same thing. 2 store x. Press enter. We're now going to go back up to our quadratic equation. We can press enter and let's see if we get 0. Yes, we do. So right there, I know positive 2 is a solution. But what you must remember is a quadratic equation can have up to 2 solutions. So I have to test the second solution. So I know 2 is a solution. So now I'm going to do minus 7. Minus 7, store x, go up to my quadratic equation, press enter. Let's see if I get 0. I do. So therefore, I've now found my answer. I would rather you do it that way, to plug those values in to the quadratic equation until you get 0. Now, they could change that up again. They could say x squared plus 5x minus 14 equal 8. No, minus 8. When you plug it in, instead of being equal to 0, it has to be equal to minus 8. So again, if you solve this using a quadratic formula or by factoring, it's going to take you between 5 and 10 minutes to solve it. But if they give you the multiple choice, it's easier to plug them into the equation. Because what does an equation mean? It has an equal sign. That means whatever value you put in x, if it solves this equation, will be equal to 0. Understand that?
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Let me make this a little bit bigger so you can see everything I pressed here. So if you need to go back over it, you'll be able to see it. So let me just do another quadratic equation again, so we can fully understand. And I'm just making these up. Let's see. Plus minus 6x equal, oops, minus 16. Okay. How do I know this is a quadratic equation? How do I know this is a quadratic equation? How do I know this is a quadratic equation? Can anybody tell me? Going once, going twice, going three. So how you tell
Yes.
something is tell
Okay.
something is a quadratic equation is that the highest degree can be 2, only can be 2.
Yes.
If that's how you tell a quadratic equation, the highest degree of that equation is raised to the second power. Okay, so the second thing you must realize is you must know standard form of a quadratic equation. That's the standard form of a quadratic equation. So then by knowing the standard form of a quadratic equation, you then can identify A, B, and C. So in this example here, what is my A equal to? What's my coefficient of x squared?
1.
1.
X.
Not x, just 1.
1. Okay.
What is B? What's my coefficient of the x?
6.
Not 6,
Negative 6.
negative 6. And then what's my coefficient or my constant for my third term?
Negative 16.
Negative 16. So what I want you to do is if you see A is equal to 1, I want you to try to factor C. Okay? What are factor pairs? What are 2 numbers that I can multiply together to get 16?
Negative
6.
2 and 8.
Well, let's go with 1 first. Negative
Okay,
1 times
16.
16. Negative 2 times
8.
8. 3
And
does
also-
not go into 16. Does 4 go into 16?
Yes.
So
Negative 4.
negative 4 times 4.
4.
5, 6, 7
Mm-mm.
does not go into 16. So we're done. So now we're going to go on the other side and we're going to change the signs. So instead of -1, we're gonna have +1 in -16, +2 in -8, and this is basically the same 4 in -4. Okay, so our first step was identifying our A, B, and C. Once we identify A is equal to 1, we factor C. The third step is identifying which pair will give us, let me change the color, which pair will give us -6. Which pair, if we combine together, will give us -6?
Would be -8 and 2. 2 and a -8.
2 and -8. So once we select that pair, we now can easily factor it. So what should I write? How is this quadratic equation factored? What should I write? I'm going to use this 2 and this -8. What am I going to write to factor this quadratic equation?
That sign current, how do you call this? Bracket?
And what variable? What is it?
6,
What variable did we use?
we use 2.
No, what variable? So what variable is in this quadratic equation?
X.
X. So X plus 2. And our second one was -8, you said. So X minus 8. So once you find that factor pair, we use the variable that was given to us. So X plus 2, X minus 8. This is this quadratic equation factored. To find the solutions, we must find the zeros. And the zeros are just the opposite of this number here. So the opposite of +2 is what?
-2.
-2. And the opposite of -8 is what?
+8.
+8. So your solutions will be -2 and 8. That's how I would teach you how to factor a quadratic equation when A is equal to 1. Okay, so what you'll get in the habit of, you'll be able to see, like I already knew the numbers were 8 and 2, because that's what's going to give me 16, and the difference is going to give me 6. So which one is negative? Since my middle term is negative, my biggest number has to be negative. So it's -8 and +2. So what you'll do is, as you practice these, what you'll notice is when A is 1, you'll look right at C, and those factor pairs will start popping up right in your head. And then you'll be able to see the answer right away. And that's what we call mental math. So we want to get there. Now, again, quadratic equations is a difficult subject. Now, again, so let's look at this one more time. But this time we already know the answers. But again, I'm going to give us the multiple choice. Okay, watch this. Let me save this and let me erase. Now, it's two ways they can ask you this question. They might give you a quadratic equation and they might ask you to factor it. They might ask you to solve it. But if you learn how to factor it, you'll learn how to solve it. So here, we already know the answer, but let's do A. Let's do 2 and -8. B, 2 and 8. C, -2 and -8. D, -2 and 8. So again, we already know the answer, but what I want to show you is that the easiest way is, again, grab your calculator. Let me clear this out. Watch this, and plug these numbers in. So 2 store X, I'm gonna plug my quadratic equation in. X squared minus 6X minus 16. Let's see if I get 0. I do not. Since I know 2 is not a possible answer, oops, that means A and C, A and B cannot be it, because they both have +2 in their answers. So now I'm gonna go to my next possible one, which is -2. -2 store x. Enter. Go up to my quadratic equation. Let's see if I get 0. Yes, I do. So I know -2 is the answer. And then let's do -8. -8 store x. Go back up to my quadratic equation. Press enter. Do I get 0? No, I do not. So therefore now I know it's not C. I don't have to do all the factoring. I don't have to find zeros. So instead of me spending 5 to 8 minutes, now that takes me about 5 to 10 seconds for each multiple choice. Do you see why you use the answers to get to solve it? And let me clear it and let me open this up. So if you need to go back, you will be able to. Let me see that. So, and another point is this. You may have only 2, maybe 3 that had something to do with quadratic equations. Probably 1 or 2. The other thing they're going to give you is they always give you is multiplying binomials. So you have something like 2x minus 3 times x plus 5. So even though they're not telling you solve this quadratic equation, when you multiply this out, this becomes a quadratic equation. So one of the tools or one of the concepts you must know is how to multiply binomials together. So let's try to do this real quick to make sure we understand. What am I going to multiply this 2x by first? By x. What is 2x times x?
2x, 2x and to the second power.
2x to the second power. Then my next step, what am I doing?
2x times 5.
2x times 5. What is 2x times 5?
Will it be 10x?
10x. So all we're doing is multiplying this 2 times this 5, and then we're keeping a variable. So 10x. Our next step is what?
-3 times x.
-3 times x. What is -3 times x?
Will be -3x.
Minus 3x. And then our last step will be to do what?
-3 times 5, which is
-3 times 5 is -15. So now, this is now, in a lot of books, they call that FOIL. Okay, this is just the components of the distributive property. You're just multiplying one term by everything else in the second parentheses. So 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times 5 is plus 10x. Then I'm gonna multiply the -3 by everything else in the other parentheses. So -3 times x gives you -3x, and then -3 times a +5 gives you -15. What you should also notice is you have like terms here. So we're gonna bring down our 2x squared. 10x minus 3x is a +7x, and then bring down the -15. This will be the answer as the multiple choice. They usually don't have fill-ins for that. They'll have multiple choice. So even though they're not saying solve the quadratic equation, when you multiply these a lot of the times, it comes out and it'll be a quadratic equation. So for example here, how we know it's a quadratic equation? Because the highest degree is 2. Everybody understand that?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, any other questions? Okay, all right, so let me go to the study guide. And since we just went over that, let's see how much we know. Matter of fact, I'll make one up. I will make one up. Let's do 3x plus 5 times x minus 4. So I want everybody to multiply these two binomials And I want you to tell me what the answer is, A, B, C, or D. So is the answer A, B, C, or D? And you can send me an answer in the chat. Multiply these two terms and tell me if you get A, B, C, or D. And send me your answer in the chat. Okay. Miss Coleman, that is correct. Okay, Layla, that is correct. There's that was 1 minute and 30 seconds. Darlene, that is correct. We still got about a minute left, minute and 15. That's good. That's good. About a minute left. Okay, Sam, that is incorrect. Got about 15 seconds left. Okay, so what I want to do here now is before I go over the answers, right? What I want to do is, Miss Coleman, how did you solve this problem? Because you did it in less than like 45 seconds. And you haven't seen this problem before, have you?
No,
I just made this problem up. So how are you able to do it that fast? Like, that was fast.
I just plugged it all into the calculator.
Okay, you plugged into the calculator. Okay. How about you, Layla?
I did it by hand.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I did it with the, paper and a pencil. So
Paper
Yeah.
and a pencil. Okay.
yes.
And Darlene, how did you do it?
I did it by hand,
Okay.
paper pen.
Okay. So now what I want to show you is this. I'm going to show you how you should have done it. But then what I'm also going to show you is how this problem can be done in less than 10 seconds. Watch this. So first of all, if you did it by hand, oops, let me change my color to black. So 3x times x is 3x squared. So right away, you know it's not C. Okay. 3x times minus 4 is minus 12x. 5 times x gives me 5x. And then 5 times minus 4 gives you minus 20. We have like terms here that we can combine. 3x squared minus 7x minus 20, which was B. Okay, that's how you were supposed to do it. Okay, and if you did it that way, wonderful. Now, watch this. I want to show you something. Watch this. Remember I told you math is about patterns. So the first thing I would do, first of all, is do 3x times x, which is 3x squared. So I got rid of C. The second thing I'm going to do is 5 times minus 4 is minus 20. So I know my last term is minus 20. Can be A, can be D. I'm done. 10 seconds. Wow. So now, that first way is the correct mathematical way. But remember what I told you, math is about patterns. You start to see things. So what happens is I purposely selected, let me erase these again. These last values are plus 20, minus 20, plus 20, and plus 20. Because right away, if you would have noticed that plus 5, oops, let me change that color. Plus 5 times minus 4 is a negative 20. Can be A, can be C, can be D. My answer is B. I'm done. I'm going. A lot of times they'll ask you to factor this problem. So for example, they might say this. Let me erase it real quick. This is what they've been doing recently. Again, and it's all once you practice, what you'll realize is you'll start noticing these patterns. Watch this. Let me move this down. Let me move this up. So another way they could give you this problem is what they might say factor. Let me change my color. Factor 3x squared minus 7x minus 20. But your multiple choice might be 3x minus 5 times x minus 4. 3x plus 5 x plus 4. And then, I don't know, 3x minus 5 times x plus 4. This is your A, this is your B, this is your C, and this is your D. So your question, they might change it up a little bit. So here, they ask you to factor 3x squared minus 7x minus 20. But instead of using the quadratic equation, what you can do is you can just use the multiple choice to find your answers. So again, if you know how to multiply binomials, then we go 3x squared minus 12x minus 5x. So you notice right there that this is minus 17x. Our middle term is minus 7. Can be A. We're going to do the same thing for here. 3x squared. 3x times 4 is 12x. 5 times x is a positive 5x. Again, our middle term is minus 7. This will give us 17x. Can be B. Again, multiplying binomials again. 3x times x. 3x squared. 3x times minus 4 gives you minus 12x. 5 times x gives you 5x. And then plus 5 times minus 4 gives you minus 20. When we combine these like terms here, we get 3x squared minus 7x minus 20. That's what we were looking for here. So again, there's, especially if they give you the multiple choice, okay, that means one of those are the answers. Instead of you trying to solve this and factor this quadratic equation, because this literally would take you forever. Matter of fact, let me just ask this question. Does anybody know how they would factor this quadratic equation? Does anybody? Does anybody know how they would factor this quadratic equation? Okay. For you to learn how to do this and do it well would take you about 2 to 3 weeks just to know how to do this. Just to do this problem in high school math or college math. In high school math, y'all probably would do this over an entire week. In college math, you probably have 1 or 2 class sessions. But literally, this is a 5 to 10 minute problem. I'm not even going to do it for you because that's how long it is. But it's similar to how we did the other quadratic equation, but my A is not equal to 1. And it would take you forever to factor this problem. It literally, I'm telling you, it would take you 5 to 10 minutes. The easiest way, if you get a problem like this, usually if they give you a quadratic equation where the coefficient A is not 1, okay, you're either going to do one or two things. If they tell you to factor it, you're going to use the multiple choice and you're going to multiply the binomials for the multiple choice. If they tell you to solve this, you would use the quadratic equation and plug your A, B, and C into your calculator. If they gave you the answers in your multiple choice, you would plug each of the multiple choice into the quadratic equation. Let me see if I can find one more example. Let's see if we can walk through it together. Let me see if I can find one. Hold on for 1 second. Let me stop sharing for a second. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see. Hopefully I can find one fairly quickly. And again, you might have maybe 2 quadratic equations. You're going to probably have a factor binomial. So when you talk about quadratic equations, you may have at the most 3 questions. You're not going to have more than that. So for my intents and purposes, I would say to you, or I would suggest to you, don't waste a whole lot of time on quadratic equations. Okay, here's one right here. This is perfect. Let me share this right here. Let me increase the zoom. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so it says, what is the solution set of x squared plus 3x minus 4 equals 6? So first of all, what I want you to do is let's see if you can give me the answer first. So I'm gonna give you 3 minutes. What is the solution set of the equation x squared plus 3x minus 4 equals 6? Is it minus 5 and 2? Is it minus 2 and minus 1? Is it 2 and 7? Or is it 5 and 10? I'm gonna give you again 3 minutes. And now you can solve it by factoring. You can solve it using the calculator. You can use your multiple choice answers to substitute them into the quadratic equation. Whatever method you would like, I want you to tell me the solution set for this quadratic equation. Send me your answer in the chat, A, B, C, or D.
What are you laughing at?
A, B, C, or D. Okay. Layla, you are correct. Let me check my timer. Forgot to tell you what time. So it took you about 3 minutes to about a minute. 2 minutes. Liliana, you are correct. Oh, Liliana, I'm glad you could join us.
Yeah, I needed well, I don't want to interrupt your class. I'll tell you at the end.
Okay. Got about 30 seconds left. Okay. Okay, that was 3 minutes. And the reason why I set my timer for 3 minutes is because that's the average amount of time you should have. Remember, it's about 40 questions for 120 minutes. 2 hours is 120 minutes. So you should set your timer as you're doing problems. You should have it set for about 3 minutes. You should be able to solve most of these problems in 3 minutes. So first of all, let me solve this by factoring first. Okay. So what I notice is this is not in standard form. How do I know it's not standard form? Because it's not equal to 0. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna subtract 6 from both sides. I get x squared plus 3x minus 10 is equal to 0. Minus 4 minus 6 is minus 10. 6 minus 6 is 0. Now I'm in standard form. Now I'm gonna factor c because my a is 1. So I'm gonna factor c, which is minus 10. I got 1 and minus 10, 2 and minus 5, minus 1 and 10, minus 2 and 5. My third step is to find which term, which pair is going to give me b. My b is plus 3. So 5 minus 2 is 3. So the factor this will be x minus 2, x plus 5. To find my solutions, I got to find my zeros, which is the opposite. So plus 2 and minus 5. Okay. That's how they want you to solve it algebraically. Okay. And that's how, if you look at my YouTube videos, I'll explain how to do it algebraically. But listen, watch this. Watch this using your calculator. This is a 15-second problem. Watch this. And I'm gonna start from D. I'm not, because we already know the answer is A. Watch this. 5 store X, plug in my formula. X squared plus 3X minus 4. Now, if it's a solution, it should be equal to 6. I'm gonna press enter. Is it equal to 6? No, it's not. So I did know for anything but 5 or 10 is not the answer. Okay, now I'm gonna try C. So I'm gonna 2 store X, go back into my formula. X is 2. If I press enter, I should see 6. Yes, I do. Since I see 6, I know 2 is a solution. So it can't be B. So it's either 2 and 7 or 2 and minus 5. So I'm gonna try my 7 store X, go back up into my quadratic equation. I'm gonna press enter. If I press enter, I should see 6. I do not see 6. That means 7 is not a solution. So I know it's not C. The only answer left is A. If you substitute your values in, that takes you about a minute to a minute and a half. If you solve it by factoring, it's going to take you about 2 to 3 minutes. Now, the last way to solve it, again, this is, let me first of all, let me clear everything. I'm gonna show you the last way using the calculator. And this is a much longer way. So if A is 1, I would rather you be able to factor it and use your mathematical skills. If A is 1 and be able to factor it, okay? Now, let me clear it. So what's, let me see. It was A, 1, 3, and minus 10. 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 So 1 store A, 3 store B, minus 10 store C. Then I plug in my quadratic formula. ND minus B plus B squared. And again, this takes practice, but I'd rather practice now. So when I take the test, it only takes me 15 seconds than spending 5 to 10 minutes on it. 2A. So I get my first answer. It's 2. I go back up into my quadratic formula. I change my plus to a minus. Again, take a day to do this. It'll save you so much time. My second answer is minus 5. Still took me under a minute. Okay, take the time, take those 2 weeks to go through this ebook, because especially for linear equations, system of equations, quadratic equations, problems that you spend 5 to 10 minutes on, the calculator can do them quickly and accurately. Okay, so now that I didn't know the whole lesson was going to be quadratic equations, so that's probably 2 to 3 questions on your exam. Okay, so you want to be prepared. If you're not 100% sure, I have another YouTube video on quadratic equations. And again, the types of problems that are expected. I don't know if I saved it. Let me save it real quick again. Let me save it. There we go. I'm not sure if I saved it. But again, what I want you to be able to do, again, if you use a Schoology site, let me show you real quick. Let me log in. Because it's one thing to understand something when I'm going over it. It's one thing to understand it at GED Math Monday. Oh, I got it. Okay. But the best way, practice quadratic equations. Anything you want is here. So you want to, if you want to practice on something specific, you can then take that quiz and make sure you know this work and see if you can do a mental math. Like right now, 56. I know 8 and 7 make 56. I need a plus 7. So I know X plus 8, X minus 7. My solutions, minus 8 and 7. 8 seconds. Why? Because it's key. This coefficient is 1. The factors are 56. So minus 8 and 7 will be the answer here. Again, but this is practice. This is what you have to practice on. Now, I go to the next one. A quadratic formula can only have one solution. You must know a quadratic formula can have up to 2 solutions. So that's false. Again, as you look at these, you have to recognize patterns. So what you notice when A is 1, what numbers are going to give me 33? In the middle was going to give me 8. So 1 and 33, 3 and 11. Okay, well, my biggest number must be positive because my middle term is positive. X plus 11, X minus 3. And this is how fast you should be able to factor or solve a quadratic equation. But the only way you're going to be able to do that is if you practice. And I have specific subject areas that you can practice. Look at this, factor the following. So again, you'll get used to, because this has become mental math. What numbers can I multiply together to get 24? But their difference is 2. Why do I know difference? Why? Because I got a negative 24. So here I know one of my numbers is going to be positive, one of my numbers is going to be negative. My biggest number is going to be positive. So guess what? X plus 6, X minus 4. Why? Because 6 minus 4 is 2. That's it. So again, as you practice and practice more, you will see the patterns in all these concepts. So when you get them on your exam, you won't be intimidated. Okay, now again, you could just, multiply each one of these until you got this quadratic equation if you didn't know how to do it this way. But if you practice enough, these will become much easier and they won't intimidate you as much. Most people miss the quadratic equations. I think the percentage of the people that get quadratic equations, I believe, is lower than 38%. Again, look at this, 64. You should know what two numbers, this is multiplication. 8 times 8 give me 64. Minus 8 and minus 8 give me negative 16. So, oops. X minus 8, X minus 8. Why? Because what you should be noticing is that these numbers, when you combine them, give you minus 16. When you multiply them, gives you plus 64. Look at that. So when you combine them, is your middle term. When you multiply them, is your final term in a standard form of a quadratic equation. So that's one of the things you want to practice with. You want to know that language. Are they asking you to factor the quadratic equation? Are they asking you to solve the quadratic equation? But if you factor it, you can solve it. So I would rather you learn how to factor it and be able to solve it all in the same token. All right, so that was that. Again, the site is free. A lot of people have been using it this week, so I'm so happy about that. I see a lot of people using it this week, so I'm very happy about that. And what you want to remember is that it doesn't matter. Whatever your practice test is saying you need help on, there's practice problems for it. So if you got area and perimeter wrong, click there. If you got mean, mode, median, and range incorrect on your exam, go there. So the practice test, and even my practice test on this site, will help you identify what you need to practice in. Not only do I have practice here, but again, I also have practice in the math lessons. So again, if you want the quadratic equations, if you want to practice, again, Khan Academy or CK12. So you can either do the individual ones or go in lessons and have them online. All right, so that was quadratic equations for this evening. Is anybody, oh, Liliana is on. So let me say, Liliana, please tell them the good news.
I passed my math test. Thanks to you, Mr. Tinsley.
Oh,
I
you're so
remember-
welcome.
Thanks, Jen.
I remember back then when I joined your class, that you told me that I was gonna be able to make it. I really thought that I wasn't. So I stopped coming to your class, and I was in one class and another and another. And I was telling Layla, stick to Mr. Tinsley. He is a man. His book is, I mean, yeah. And thanks to you, I'm gonna owe you this forever, Mr. Tinsley. You are just awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank
Didn't
you.
I tell
You're so
you,
welcome.
Layla? Didn't I tell you that to stick just to
Yes.
stick with him. Yeah.
Yeah, he told me to stick to him. He told me to get the book, and that's why I'm here.
So
I'm
so
doing
one of the
exactly.
so one of the things you have to remember is math can be frustrating.
It
Don't
is.
let the frustration stop you from getting what you want. Listen, I'm telling you, take the 2 weeks to go through this ebook. I'm telling you, it will
Yes.
make things
Yes.
so much easier for you.
Practically the calculator, with what you say in the book, Mr. Tinsley, practically the calculator did my test. Just like
Good.
that. Yeah.
Eh,
Just like the way you told us, just plug it in. The calculator is everything. It's just in like what's in your book. So it's the best $20 I have invested in my whole life. So
Now, but give credit to yourself. You were practicing and you were on taking those practice tests. I saw you. Because remember, I can see everybody as you do, as
yeah,
you put the work in. She was working a lot. So it's not just the book and the GED Math Mondays, it's the work she also put in. So she took the practice test. So what we did was she took the practice test, she took it again, and then we had a one-on-one session. So then we could identify what she was having problems with. Then she took 1, 2, 3 more practice tests. And then we did another one-on-one session. And then she was ready. So remember, again, this course is free. You don't have to pay anything. You can practice as many times as well, not many times. You can practice each test 5 times. But that will tell you what you need help on. The things that I have in my practice test and the things on this site are the things that you're going to see. Now, you might not see every single type of problem, but everything I cover will be on one of the 3 exams that they give you for the year.
well, Mr.
Okay.
Tinsley, I was telling Layla, I was like, many of your problems were in the GED, like the marble one for probability or something like that. Yeah, a lot of your problems were in there. So yeah, you guys, Darlene, I know you can do it.
Yes,
I know you
Darlene,
can do it.
now that she has to take her GED, she's going to be taking it soon. She just doesn't know it yet because she hasn't talked to me, but I'm going to talk to her offline. She's going to be
Yeah.
taking it soon. So let me
Yeah,
pause this recording.
Mhm.
Hold on for 1 second. Doesn't know- Hello?
Okay,
Hello?
okay. Okay,
Hello?
yes.
My
Yes.
screen just went blank. Are you there?
So I can see you, yes.
Okay, you can see me. My screen is totally blank. So I didn't mean to,
Okay.
I didn't want to record. Oh, there we go. Okay, I didn't mean to start recording.